virtual event featuring global speakers from all over the world from our mentor group and also our startups. This is going to be the agenda for today's event. First, we're going to start with a brief introduction for those of you that are new to our community so you get a better understanding of what is SOSB, what is China Accelerator, and what has been happening during this year. After that, you'll get an opportunity for the first time in public to meet our newest batch, China Accelerator Batch 18. And right after that presentation, we'll go straight to all the presentations by the all 8 inspirational speakers, each of them sharing 8 very interesting lessons in 8 minutes. We are here to share what we do. And one of the key things that we do is we help startups cross borders. But first, to help you understand more about our whole organization, I'm going to hand it over to William Balvin, Managing Director in China Accelerator and MOX, as well as General Partner in SOSB. So, William.
Thanks, Oscar. So we're SOSB. We're a venture capital firm with $740 million under management. Started in 1996, so we've been going for a while now. And we're a bit different than most VCs out there. First of all, we are global. Now, a lot of VCs are also global, but they have different teams running US or Asia or Europe. For us, for China Accelerator and MOX, we invest in startups from all around the world, and we help them expand to Asia. So between our offices here in Asia, US, and Europe, we've got global coverage. We're also a bit different because we have an investment theme focused on different verticals. So you're here with us today for China Accelerator and MOX, which focuses on cross-border internet, and Oscar will talk a little bit about that later. But we also, and a lot of people don't know this, invested in hardware with hacks, with IndieBio and life sciences and synthetic biology and cellular agriculture, as well as food and ag tech with FoodX. We are, as of the second quarter of this year, according to PitchBook, the #1 most active VC in the world. We've done over 1,000 investments, and we have an excess of a 26% net IRR, which puts us in the top 10% of VCs in the world. As so for Q2, it's not just global, but we are really hitting all the different markets. So we're the #2 most active VC in the US, #4 in Europe, and #2 in the rest of the world. And actually the US data just came out for Q3, and now in the US, we are the #1 most active VC in the world. In the US. So for the verticals, we go deep. Now it's very unique to go deep in multiple sectors within one fund. But we think there's a lot of synergy across hardware, across biotech, across internet software, and areas like health. 30% of our investments are in health, and we are the #1 most active investor in health in the world, as well as hardware, robotics, IoT, and other areas. And we're also very happy to be the #5 most active investor in female-led startups in the world. So what's the traction? So over the last 5.5 years, we've put to work, invested in startups, $237 million. And those companies, after we invested, have gone on to raise over $2.6 billion. And our portfolio now has a market value of $17 billion. So I'm going to kick it back to Oscar, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about China Accelerator. Thank you very much for joining.
So as William explained, we are global. We are investing everywhere in the world, and we're going deep in the software, hardware, and biotech space, where you can see that we have very active investments in areas like artificial intelligence, blockchain, SaaS, mobile apps, etc. But we're also very broad in industries. As you can see here, these are just some of the companies that that we have invested in areas like financial services, HR technology, travel, entertainment, health, mobility, literally any industry that has a positive or potentially positive impact in the world is an area where we can look at companies. So we are investing everywhere in almost everything. And you'll have today an opportunity to meet some of the companies that make this more specific and more real. We are able to do that not just through all the support that comes with the SOSB network and the amazing team that we have working with us full time. We are also able to do that thanks to a huge amount of mentors and partners that are working with us. Also partners that come from everywhere in the world and that come from very different nature. From the co-working spaces that are hosting our companies, government organizations that are helping our startups expand into new regions or helping us connect with more companies specifically in these areas, in these jurisdictions, companies that gave our portfolio startups access to free services. We'll talk more about that later, but I want to feature a very special group of these partners that increasingly are making are becoming a very important part of our ecosystem. And this is corporate multinationals that are working with our portfolio and some of the companies in our ecosystem, not just our portfolio, to try to explore new ways to address some of their goals, some of the challenges through a rapid prototyping and rapid experimentation together with these companies. As you can see today, a lot of our companies actually fall into the B2B and enterprise category, but we also have a lot of these opportunities coming with consumer companies that find opportunities to explore new markets and open new channels to these multinationals. So increasingly, this is something that we started 6 years ago, and right now this is a very important part of our ecosystem that allow us to go really deep into industries that only thanks to this collaboration with these partners we're able to do it. We just announced a couple of weeks ago a very strategic collaboration in the music industry with Warner Music. And if you stay tuned, you'll learn that there are more and more things coming, not just for this year, but for the coming year. This is a very special year for us. As you can see, our logo has this 10 there, because this year is our 10th year anniversary. We have been working very hard for 10 years. We were the first accelerator ever launched in not just in China, but in Asia. And now in this 10th year anniversary, we're also evolving and we continue innovating and reinventing ourselves. If you want to learn more about what are we organizing, events, opportunities to network with our companies, or simply want to be in touch, we recommend you to just go to our website, subscribe to our newsletter, or simply scan this QR code that will take you to some of our social media accounts where you can learn about what's happening in our community. And now, what we're waiting, what all some of you were waiting, is time to meet the superstars that are part of Batch 18. So without any further delay, we're going to start working with the companies. But first, I want all of you to check this survey. Okay, we need your help. Our community, you're also part of our extended community. We need the startups to have feedback. We need these startups to learn more about what do you think about them. Do you think that the way they introduce themselves is clear? Do you think this is understandable? And most importantly, do you think they are exciting? Do you think that what they're doing is going to take them to become the next unicorn out of our portfolio? So you can check this link. It might be difficult if you have to copy it manually. So if you check the live chat in the platform, in the multiple platforms, you'll be able to simply click there and open this form that will allow you to vote for every single company and just let the founders know your opinion. Very simple. How clear, how easy it is to understand what they do, how exciting you think it is their business. And right now, no more delay, let's welcome Baibab from Bilpan to present the first startup. Baibab, all yours.
Mobile applications have now become an integral part for most of the businesses, but having an app leads to constant development and improvement. Sometimes single change would require you to go through multiple layers of quality analysis that would be time consuming and expensive. BuildPan is an AI SaaS-based solution that assists you to continuously integrate changes, test everything working, and deploy your applications on Play Store and App Stores in just one click. We are working with 20 plus companies across Asia and USA. Happy to speak more at a time of your convenience. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Vaibhav, for the introduction. As we get ready for the next startup, welcome Manuel from Ignatica.
Insurance hasn't changed in over 100 years, and insurers are stuck with their old IT legacy systems, which are a mess. I felt this pain firsthand when I was CTO for in Asia. New products takes months to launch and cost millions. Being slow and expensive means lost opportunity and kills innovation. Ignatica's platform allows insurers to launch products in days and lowers costs by 60%. Contact us to see how we're already helping insurers to grow new markets, increase profitability, and improve client satisfaction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manuel. Now it's time to get to learn more about Mike Legal from Anshul.
Companies today are spending more than 60% of their time on legal processes, which are mundane, manual, and repetitive, which has a direct impact of more than $60,000 of loss per associate in terms of inefficiencies. For example, companies today need to scan thousands of trademarks just to identify if there's anything similar. Mike Legal is building an ecosystem of legal tools, currently servicing more than 100 companies to automate their entire intellectual property process, and is now scaling to other legal domains. Happy to connect with someone who wants to automate the legal process.
Thank you very much, Anshul. And time to learn more about our next company. And we have Binayak from Touch.
Millions of hours of video content are published online every day. Video is the future of online content, but content producers and media platforms are spending millions of dollars in a very manual process like video tagging and editing that is expensive, slow, and inconsistent. We at Touch use machine learning and artificial intelligence to scan through millions of hours of content to capture instant highlights, identify monetizable action points within the content by placing ads. We have clients in 4 different continents like Disney, ESPN, Sony, English Premier League, and are already generating $200,000 in monthly revenue. And we are growing at a 20% month on month. Happy to set up a meeting with anyone looking at new ways to get value out of the video content.
Thank you very much, Binayak. Please, everybody, don't forget to vote. Get all the votes on the companies. You'll have to submit the form at the end. And now, time to learn more about Cloud9 by Isabel. Unmute yourself, Isabel. You're good now.
E-commerce is growing to 4.9 trillion US dollars and needs millions of photos. The problem is that businesses can't distinguish between a good and a bad photographer and how much they should get charged for a photo shoot. The solution is Cloud9, an AI-driven online platform that matches photographers with brands to shoot photos within 24 hours worldwide, saving up to 60% in photo shoot costs. Attraction 150 brands, including Visa, Google, Unilever, across 15 countries. Come and talk to us to help you create photos or to be part of our journey.
Thank you very much. Please remember to vote. Give the companies some feedback, how clear you think is their pitch and how exciting, what is their likeliness for them to become the next unicorn in your portfolio. And now we have time to learn more about Kojak by Nilesh.
So hiring the wrong engineer can cost you up to $30,000 and put you 3 months behind the schedule. So companies today spend 100+ hours in engineering interviews to find the right candidate. Code Judge is a code simulation platform that reinvents the tech interview process by using real-world tech projects to capture skill data automatically, helping companies to reclaim the interview time and save costs up to 70%. Since our launch 3 months back, we are working with 25 plus companies and have evaluated over 10,000 developers. If you know any companies that's wasting time in engineering interviews, help us fix that.
Thank you very much, Nilesh. Community, this is batch 18 for Chan Accelerator, the second batch of this year. And if you're interested in these companies or you want to learn more about our portfolio and want to explore potentially joining the next unicorn, we are organizing end of the month a job fair that we normally always organize offline in Shanghai, where the companies move when we run a program in a normal world. But right now we're taking advantage of the current situation. And as a real entrepreneur, we cannot travel, but we can access people everywhere. We can access talent from everywhere. So if you're interested in any of these startups or any of the other verticals, any of the other startups in our portfolio, scan this QR code, go to our website, learn more about this virtual job fair that we're organizing by the end of the year. And if you're an entrepreneur, and you want to be able to join our program, and this is what we offer. All of these startups, they receive actual investment from us. We invest in every single company before they join our program. As part of our commitment to them, we're investing in them. We're investing $150,000 in each of these companies, but additionally, they're getting access to over $1 million in free services. We are basically a month into the process, and there's already companies that have benefited for almost $500,000 in free services, things that potentially they could have paid for, but right now, they can get them for free, and they can retain more ownership of the other company. We're going to be working together, very, very close for 6 months, although they'll be able to become part of our community forever. A community that today has almost 200 startups in the region that is growing really fast, with over almost 50 new investments every year we're making in this area. And importantly, for today, the almost 400 mentors that the companies are going to be working with during this process. Some of the mentors that you're going to have an opportunity to meet today, because they are some of the speakers that are going to be sharing their own experience and what they've learned through their hard work, building companies, advising companies, and some of them in very, very different roles. You have an opportunity today to learn from 8 of them. Unfortunately, only 8 minutes for each of them. They're going to concentrate all their insights into a very, very short period of time. But if you want to learn more, some of these speakers, some of these mentors, they are already going to be present in our podcast. China Startup Pulse, you can check on Google, China Startup Podcast. We are basically half of the first page that you find when you look for podcasts about China. You'll be able to find us. We have some of them already with a full interview. After this event, we'll curate the charts, and we will add some of the questions that some of you are asking in the chat, so we can have an extended version. But we also have other key players in the ecosystem that are going to be a really good option if you want to learn more about the startup ecosystem with Chinese characteristics. And now, ready for the speakers. I would like to welcome from Hong Kong, our first speaker of the night, Mikhail Abdullah. Mikhail, welcome to 8x8.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So I'm going to be talking today about the power of constraint. I'm going to be giving you some sort of very personal examples of my own journey as a founder. And I think one thing that everybody has to sort of be aware of when you start a company is you will absolutely have these moments. These moments where you feel everything's working against you, these moments where you feel your options are limited. It's perfectly normal. And what's funny about this is I didn't realize these moments of constraint at the time. It's only in hindsight and sort of reflecting back that I see how important they were to my company. So quickly, just a little overview about me. I launched 8 Securities in Hong Kong and Japan in 2012. 8 Securities was Asia's very first mobile-only investing service and robo-advisor. We raised 70 million in capital. And then prior to my startup, I worked at E-Trade for 10 years. And so that was a very sort of early introduction to fintech. And I've had the good fortune of working in Silicon Valley, New York, London, Dubai, Mumbai, Hong Kong, Tokyo, and Singapore. So I've been around a lot. In April, my company was acquired by Social Finance, which is a San Francisco-based fintech, really focusing on a wide range of financial services from lending, investing, and so on. So had a good exit there. I like this quote. It comes from one of the co-founders of Twitter, and it says, "Creativity comes from constraint." And I want to talk a little bit about what that means to me. And first and foremost, startups are never easy. There's never an overnight success. So as you begin your journeys as founders and starting your own companies, I can promise you this will be absolutely true. So the first point I want to make, personal story, was our very first product failed, and really failed miserably. And was in an interesting situation because we raised a fairly large initial round of funding. Over the course of the business, we raised 70 million, but our first round was 8 million US. And in many respects, it created problems for us. We had too much time. It was too comfortable. We were over-engineering our products. And I think we were inventing problems that didn't exist. And when you get your first product wrong and you don't get traction, it puts an enormous amount of pressure on you to right the ship and get on track. Because if you don't, you're in trouble across multiple levels. So, constraints, drove a solution to that problem. And really, the message here is you can't be all things to all people. You have to focus. Pick a problem, pick a single solution. We launched Asia's first mobile-only investing service, and we really began resonating with millennials. So first product, completely over-engineered, trying to speak to entire market, speak to everybody. It didn't work. It only started working when we focused. In 2014, we were in a situation where we were only 6 months away from falling off a cliff. So, runway, and this again will probably happen to most companies. And we had too much focus on account growth, really just too much focus on assets and growth, but not enough focus on revenue and profitability, not enough focus on the business model in general. And that created a very unsustainable burn rate. So again, a moment of constraint. We had to drive revenue. We had to drive growth and profitability. So we had to get creative again. And the creativity there was pricing, where we launched Asia's first subscription service. So basically unlimited investing and trading for a fixed fee. So very simple, similar to Netflix or Amazon Prime. And that's really when our revenue began to take off. And I think if we didn't have that restraint of runway, maybe we would have carried on down this path of growing at all costs and continuing to be unprofitable. In 2016, we had another near-death experience where a major investor walked away from a signed term sheet. It was a really long process. The due diligence process took 9 months. We were locked in that process. We weren't able to raise new capital. We were not able to bring in new investors. So really, really problematic for us. So what that did is it created another, constrained situation, but we had to find a solution. So in this instance, we had to downsize the team and we had to rapidly cut costs in order to recover from that 9 months of being somewhat idle. And we had to get really creative and we automated almost everything in the business. When you don't have 3-4 resources on something, you better figure out a way, to automate it. And it made the business so much stronger than it was at the time. And then really from 2017 to 2020, the business really took off. It really began to rocket. But I want to make the point that the first 5 years were incredibly difficult and we made a lot of mistakes and we had a lot of constraints, many of them, our own fault, but they were there nonetheless. And again, in hindsight, it was those constraints that I think really made the business what it is today. So I think my lesson is, never, I think, have entrepreneurs faced so much adversity as many of you are facing today. There's constraints everywhere. You're having constraints in terms of raising capital. You're having constraints perhaps in terms of finding the right team. The market is giving you constraints. It's just unlimited, really difficult. But I want everyone to really embrace these constraints. It'll make your business stronger. If you're able to succeed through this environment, you'll have a very, very strong business at the other end. So with that, I'll stop. And I just wanted to share my experience with you, the importance of constraints. You will face constraints, but embrace them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mikhail, for sharing. Mikhail, I mean, this is a really important topic that I've introduced a few of our companies to Mikhail, because sometimes founders, and I was on that side when I was more on the entrepreneur side, we believe that all of our problems are going to be solved if we just have enough capital, and making sure that you can use resources in the right way is critical. That sounds like a very interesting concept. But when you have somebody that has walked the talk and have had the experience, I can make very specific explanations on how this happened to himself, then everything becomes very different, and suddenly everything becomes way more real. We did actually an amazing podcast with Mikhail, where we will discuss about these topics and some others slightly deeper that you can get access to. Thank you, Mikhail, for joining. As we go back to the next speaker, Youre. So please, Youre, share your screen so we can see your presentation. Okay, perfect. We can see your screen now.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope you can hear me fine and can see my screen. Today, I'm going to share 3 examples of applied growth mindset. I've been working for Skyscanner, a travel meta search, for 8 years. That's quite a long time. But when I started, I was actually employee number 32. So you can imagine that was a very small startup working out of a very small office in Edinburgh in Scotland. I started as the market development manager for the Italian market. And when I left, we were over 1,000 people, and I had become the global VP of growth for the entire company. I've seen 10 times growth happening multiple times in the course of the year. And I went from being an individual contributor to a team leader of over 300 people. I also contributed and led the transition from a traditional marketing organization to a growth organization operating according to growth hacking principle, lean startup principle, and embracing a full agile methodology. And last but not least, I've overviewed expansion to 54 plus markets across APAC, EMEA, and Americas. What's interesting to know is how this story actually continues successfully. We've been acquired by the travel giant Citrip, which I'm sure you know, for 1.4 billion pounds. So what was the key to all this success and this growth? Probably the answer is quite straightforward, given that you've seen the title of my presentation, but actually it was a growth mindset. Probably you're all familiar with what this is, so I'm not gonna spend much time on that, but it's basically an attitude towards your personal growth. It's a belief that through effort and continuous learning, you basically can become whatever you want. And normally when we think about a growth mindset, we think about that at a personal level, because that's easier to manage, right? But when you actually become a team leader or when you're a founder of a startup, it's really important to understand how you can embrace and especially enable a growth mindset at team level and organizational level. So what I'm going to do now is to share 3 concrete learnings around the growth mindset through applied examples. So the first one, I labeled it fail forward. And the learnings that I would like you to take away is that if you fail the first time, what you should do is try to learn from this failure and try to do things differently, not necessarily harder. A lot of people think that doing it harder is the key. Actually, the key is learning from your mistakes and try to do things differently and more creatively. And I've got a little story to share with you. And this is an example of the personal growth mindset that then extended to my team. Back in 2013, Facebook had just released a beta test of their mobile app install ads, a format that today is super popular, right? But back then was actually an extraordinary novelty in the marketing world because it allowed to do very specific mobile targeting and reach people to get new downloads for your product. Well, when I read the news about this beta coming up, I tried to contact Facebook and actually access this test. And I was denied. Why? Because we were nobody. We didn't have enough budget and, we were not known enough. So for us, of course, this was the first failure, right? But me and my colleague in the social media team didn't give up. We thought about how can we turn these into something that would be mutually beneficial. So we tried to reformulate our proposition for Facebook and say that we would share all the learnings in terms of the implementation of the campaigns, the practicalities that go with actually launching and scaling the campaigns across markets. And this way we made the proposition for them much more interesting than just asking to join the test. The story is that they actually gave us access to this beta test, and I had an experimental budget of £10,000. With this little money, we actually got an extraordinary amount of downloads. So in 4 days, we got 4 million downloads of our newly launched app. And what's interesting from a growth perspective is that we were paying 1/10 of the cost that we would normally pay for a CPI with other channels. What happens next is that our board actually scaled up my budget from £10,000 to £1 million in the matter of 1 week. So I had to suddenly hack together a team and scale up the campaigns to 50 plus markets across 30 plus languages. And this set us on a path to then reach the 60 million downloads that we would achieve in the next years. So this is an example of applied growth mindset to personal and team level. The second example that I've got for you is actually about the fact that growth is not a short-term goal. Actually, sometimes you need to make a hard choice about looking for long-term user value over short-term revenue gains. This is a product example that I've taken from the old Skyscanner website. You can see here the search box where you as a traveler, you would look for cheap flights from a destination to a destination. You would get a set of results in the search page. But what also would happen is that thanks to this pre-checked box that you see at the bottom here, we would actually place some pop-unders behind your main window. And these pop-unders would actually offer alternative flights given by OTAs, online travel agents. For some reason, this pop-unders generated a conspicuous amount of revenue for the company. But actually, on the other side, they were also generating a lot of user complaints and dissatisfaction because they were considering this as spam, as something hidden that we were placing, behind their back and so on. So at some point, we decided that the growth mindset to adopt was to go for the long-term value generation for our travelers and not for the short-term revenue gain. We killed this product feature, we removed the pop-unders, and we actually focused on the right thing. So making the search results and our algorithm much better. So these actually resulted into longer-term retention and giving much more value to our travelers. So we actually made up that revenue that we've lost in the short term. So let me move on to the third and last applied example of growth mindset. And this is about the learning that growth needs to be operationalized. What does that mean? That actually growth becomes much easier if everyone is aligned on its definition. I would encourage you to go away after the whole event today and ask to any of your colleagues what's their definition of growth and what metrics do they use to measure growth. I am very sure that you're going to get completely different answers. So the point is that it's much easier to deliver growth if you are clear on what growth actually means for your organization. So how do we deal with these challenges, Skyscanner? The first step was actually to come up with the North Star metric. That guiding principle actually embeds the value that your product generates for your users. In our case, it was called total ticket value, and it was a measure of how much travel we could facilitate for travelers out there through the product. But that was the first step. We came up with the North Star metric to focus on user value, and we shared the news across the company. The second step to actually deliver concrete growth results was to link the North Star metric to the operational metrics, the daily KPIs that teams were experimenting with, that they were running their A/B test against. So we developed an internal tool that we call the North Star metric prioritization tool. And what this tool would allow people to do was to simulate scenarios and compare, for example, initiative A versus initiative B, test A versus test B, and give you an estimated impact on the North Star metric. This was fully embraced and adopted by our growth teams, and also to develop things like, for example, the go-to-market strategy, and come up with sharp focused on user value, all the market strategy and the marketing campaigns. This clearly resulted into a significant increase in our bookings and also in our growth overall. So just to summarize, I wanted to leave you with this overall statement that the enablement of a growth mindset at company level happens through an intentional creation of a growth operating system that is made not only by growth-oriented culture, but also by tools that you can develop in-house, by a change in structure, and by growth-oriented initiatives that will lead you to actual growth. And in case you're wondering if you're too small, the answer is no. There is no startup that is too small for that. I hope this has been helpful, and thanks very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Youre. That's an awesome sharing, and definitely something super valuable for any founder that needs to understand that growth is not magic. That growth is not just like some tricks and hacks that you can run. It is all about a mindset that requires to make things happen. And this specific, I particularly like the first thing that you mentioned about how important it is to understand this change from individual contributor to be able to become a leader and a manager and an enabler of other people. Because at the end of the day, scaling is also about bringing in the people and bringing in the processes that can make things happen. So thank you for sharing, and of course, thank you for all the support with all the funders. Thank you, Youre, connecting from Barcelona. And now, time to go to our next speaker. We have Shannon connecting from Bangkok, also great partner, great mentor. Shannon, if you can share your screen so we can see your slides. Yep, we can see your slides now. All stage is yours.
Cool. Hi, let me just make sure I'm not on mute. Hi, my name is Shannon from Gobi Partners, and today I chose the topic, 3 key learnings in avoiding failures in M&A and dating and marriages. Okay. So with the dawn of COVID, you're seeing a lot of consolidation now. There's a lot of M&As definitely on the table. Just some stats for you. So 70 to 90% of all M&As fail. 50% of all marriages end in divorce. Even more so now I'm hearing during this whole COVID time. So usually when you get into an M&A or you have a business, you want it for a long time. This is a long-term commitment. Usually when you get married, you are hoping that it's going to be your last. Because there are such crucial relationships that you have for the rest of your lives, it's such an important decision for you to make. So having been through both myself, a few M&As and 1 marriage, I have some learnings for you guys in hopes that it might save you some time, pain, heartache, and money. Okay, let me just take this out. So 1, know yourself and choose wisely. For the M&A side of things, there's a lot of similarities, which is why I chose this topic. So for the M&A side, before you go out looking for an M&A partner, know who you are, your company is, and basically do a SWOT analysis, understand your strengths and weaknesses. Then go out and understand the criteria that you're looking for. Actually put together an exhaustive list that has all the different qualities. It can be competitors, it can be industrial sectors, whether adjacent or vertically similar to you guys. All the qualities that you actually have to go through are anything that can range from financial, culture, strengths and weaknesses, geographical locations, their team, technologies that they have. So all of these things, you need to make sure you flesh it out, you know exactly what you're looking for, because it's really difficult to get out of an M&A as a marriage as well. Having said that, there is no shortcut to this. put some time into it, go through a real list, but the second part about that is find recommendations and real references. So because this is such an important decision, the proper due diligence, and the one that I found in my past history, is that the most valuable insight that you get on whether or not you guys will mesh well together would be when you talk to the stakeholders of that company. For example, their shareholders, investors, their employees, how they treat their employees, how they make decisions, the business partners they work with, clients and customers. Having understood that whole entire realm and having time put in where you actually have these conversations yourself are so key, and you will find out so much insight from that one. Same thing with marriage, main thing, or dating. If you're dating, know yourself first. I've found that it's so valuable to actually spend time by yourself. I understand the pressure of social media where everybody's hooked up or everybody's dating or having babies. But, the main thing is to know yourself first. There is no simple way of a list and criteria like the M&A side. I mean, there's a big balance between having that checklist and also having no standards at all. So, have a balance, but that goes along with when you know yourself as well. I was recently introduced to Tinder. Oh my God. The lowest unqualified leads, which led to a very poor funnel and a very low conversion rate. So I guess this is where you actually go through and look at the source of where you're shopping. Or where you're looking for people. What I found through the years, talking to a bunch of friends with successful relationships, is that they actually do come from the similar backgrounds. They share similar lifestyles. They have similar family backgrounds, and sometimes when you talk to that person or get to know the person that you're dating, it would be beneficial or useful actually to get an insight on how they are with their family, with other friends, with business contacts as well. Because, at the end of the day, you're trying to understand what that relationship would be like with that person. And yeah, very two similar things between M&A and marriage. Let's go to the next one. 2, align cultures, values, and goals. So this is actually the biggest reason why M&As fail, or what you see in marriages in irreconcilable differences, right? I think that's what they call it. Anyway, so usually the overlying goals are very similar. So yes, M&A, you want that larger entity, that big IPO or that big exit. And the marriage is the kid, or some people without you, me, a dog named Boo, a house, blah, blah, blah. So, the overall arching goal is usually the same, but there's a lot of nuances with it, and values and cultures and how you actually get there is really, really key. So for example, I went through an M&A, one of the most recent ones that I went through in the last couple of years. It seemed that we were very complementary to each other. I was very good in marketing. They were very good in operations. We had 2 different companies doing very similar things in 2 different countries. And, everything seemed to look like it would work. But, at the end of the day, the culture and the values were not shared enough. We didn't give enough time to actually explore each other in terms of how we would, roll out things. What were the most important things in our value system, and what our short, mid, and long-term goals are as well. And so that the M&A in my it could have been done better, but if we had taken time to establish our values and culture and goals together, I think that we would have gone a longer way. Same thing with marriage. Like if there's values, is sometimes we get caught up in the love or the honeymoon period or the romance, that you do forget that the fundamentals is you're trying to share this life with this person forever. And so with that, comes with, things that are hard topics that sometimes you don't want to talk about, like what's important to you, where you're going in life, where you want to be. Maybe somebody has different dreams and job aspirations, different financial aspirations, different ways of raising your kids, if you want kids or if you don't want kids. There's a lot of goes and no-goes that should be discussed, and how you actually, what things that you actually want to do together, and how you actually will establish short, midterm, and long-term goals. I know it sounds like a project, but you know, it's really, really important that you do understand that there are fundamental values and cultures that you should discuss. And 3, try before you buy. So in M&A, one thing like that last scenario that I was talking about, is that usually when you do actually go through the M&A, you've already discussed your values, but you actually have not, what's actually very, very important is when you actually go through the scenarios itself. So if you can have your 2 teams spend a lot of time together, do some campaigns together. If even better, they should have had a working relationship for at least a couple months, 6 months to a year before you actually decide to, you know, get in bed together and join and become the same company. So what I found that's useful for a lot of successful teams is, yes, do some kind of exercise, have them spend time together, work on a departmental roadmap and execution plan, and actually try it out first before you actually start finalizing the M&A itself. Also know that there will be conflict. There needs to be a set evaluation meeting afterwards. You got to revisit it periodically and make sure that you have ways and protocols to address all of these conflicts that will come up. Same thing with marriage. So they say that I'm an avid believer of living together, but one of the things about living together is, yes, there is conflict. One of the advice that my friends has given me and what I've seen recently is that newlyweds or new couples, because the communication personalities are not the same yet, one tip that my friends have been doing is that they've been going to a marriage counselor or a couples counselor or a therapist early on to try to bridge that gap prior to them actually having a big problem where you can't just go back, because that's what builds resentment. So yes, make sure that you know that there will be conflict. Communication is key. Set some time out to evaluate, do date night, and revisit periodically. So the summary is: know yourself, know what you want, choose wisely. It's a very important decision. Try it out, align your goals and values. Communication is key. Always set protocols on how to scenario plan. No matter what, you will have conflict. What do you do in that essence? How do you find ways to compromise, revisit, reevaluate? It's just like a startup. Iterate, iterate, iterate. Don't give up hope. And finally, thank you so much. Try your best, sending good love and business and karma your way. Bye.
Thank you very much, Shannon, for sharing lessons in life. I mean, Shannon is awesome. I mean, we met in Taipei where she was working with some of the MOX teams for the first time, and it was great to see how authentic she was, and connecting stuff that everybody might have experienced, and how this is something that you can apply to real life. Her own experience as a founder, working through sales, M&As, and right now, like leading investment in for Gobi in Thailand. Awesome. And thank you for the reminder. I mean, long-term relationship is very, very important. For me today is the 22nd anniversary with my partner in life. So very special day to remember the value of long-term relationships. And now, time to go to our next speaker, Adam, connecting from Hong Kong. Adam, if you can share your screen so we can see your presentation. We can see your video now, and we can see your presentation too. Adam, your stage. Thank you very much for coming sharing today.
Thanks. I don't have anything as interesting as Tinder or going to bed with other people, but I'm still glad to be here, and good evening from Hong Kong. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Adam Najberg. I work at Alibaba. I used to work at DJI, the drone company, and I was a foreign correspondent and editor for 25 years, most of them at the Wall Street Journal. I pivoted to comms and content from journalism because I needed to pay for college tuition for my kids. But something funny happened along the way. I really became a believer in the power of PR. We're taught as journalists to observe, and during these past several years, I've done a lot of observing. And while I don't have a scientific result for you, I do have a lot of anecdotal evidence to support what I'm about to say. And that is that comms is one of the key areas of a company's development that's ignored, downplayed, delayed, or misunderstood, especially by startup companies. And I can say also that nearly 100% of the problems that companies encounter because they think they're not ready for comms, they can't afford comms, or that one of the founders who read a blog post about comms can deal with the media and public about your messaging. You'd never have an executive assistant design a Fusion course, so why would anyone think an engineer who starts up a company will know how to pitch features to the New York Times or diffuse a crisis with the newspaper? Let me give you an example of a great awakening by my bosses in Shenzhen when I was working at DJI. It was 2016. I was at a Las Vegas hotel dreaming about the all-you-could-eat buffet breakfast because DJI's per diem was very, very low. And I was with my head of North American comms. He was in a room across the hall. We were off the strip because, again, not a lot of money floating around there. But what happened was a crisis broke out. A drone hit a British Airways plane that was landing at Heathrow. And basically, every news outlet on both sides of the pond started to cover this. And as if that wasn't enough, we actually had another crisis break out. The Verge decided to put out a story that rounded up and aggregated 7 recent incidents of how people were able to take drones out of the sky. So drones are the new UFOs. Everybody sees them, but nobody actually ever really saw them. Pilots back in that day were prone to crying drone for anything that was flying around them that wasn't another airplane. After it happened several times that the drone sighting turned out to be something else, a false alarm, my DJI PR team got very good at counseling media not to rush out a story before all the facts were in. So I'm still in my pajamas, spent pretty much the entire day dealing with this headache and this pain of 2 stories with my North American comms director in a Las Vegas hotel. And basically we won the day. What happened? Well, look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane. It was actually a garbage bag, kind of as we told. So, I mean, basically all of this is to underscore that every day, even though you think you're in the business of selling robotic dogs or basketball coaching software that goes on an iPad, you're actually in the information and messaging business. And failing to understand this could be ruinous. And now I'm going to go back to the main presentation from the opening anecdote. You're always one crisis away from utter failure. You might argue that statistically, since 90% of your companies are supposed to fail, what difference does it make whether you have a comm strategy or not? Because only 10% of you are still going to be around. Well, here's the thing. It's even more important when you're a small company because you're vulnerable and you need an edge. And if your brand takes a hit before it's really a brand, you may never raise another penny. Your reputation with the public will be garbage. The problem may follow you as the founder to your next venture. And it also shows that you're not a leader with foresight. If you don't tell your story, someone else is going to tell it for you. And you may not like the results. Point here, control your message, control the narrative. It's just as important as what color your widget is to determine what your message is. But there's also some other stuff that's going on here. I have 8 reasons. This is the 3rd one. You need to bridge the gap between your brand and the public. What does that mean? What does that mean? You need to erase doubts, shape opinions, persuade, create trust. Half of a young company's problem is that they're not yet a brand, that nobody knows what you stand for or what your brand represents. I want you to think about these iconic brands. A Rolex is classic, holds its value, gains value over decades. Coke's a globally iconic brand, no matter what language you see it in. Apple is cool, hip, cutting edge. All the successful people have it. Mario is fun. Disney is wholesome, no matter what generation you come from. Nobody knows who you are until you get everyone sharing your brand messages. And that's what your comms can do for you. What else? Make friends with the media now so that you get sympathetic listens later. Learn how to pitch journalists. Don't ignore them, revile them, or think you're too small to matter. When you're small and working your way up, that's the time to make contacts. Be open, be transparent, make your company and brand trusted and believable as a good entity. If you have a dozen media friends and something goes wrong, the channel's open and you get the benefit of the doubt. It's better to be that canary in the coal mine than to go down to the coal mine yourself. And that's another thing that your comms people can do for you. Your head of PR is an early warning system. They'll tell you, because they're your best sounding board for all your messages, good or bad, how something is going to resonate. Chinese companies, by the way, and I say this from 5 years of experience, they make many mistakes by thinking the world outside of China thinks like the world inside China, and that's just not the case. Someone with global experience can tell you how your message is going to be received, and if he or she's wrong, they're professional enough to pivot and change on the fly. So at a startup, everybody kind of shares the founder's vision, but will the public share the vision? Again, here's where comms can give you a reality check. Founders are visionary and inspiring, but you're prone to telling the public that you can land a colony on the moon before you've even designed the rocket. Comms can filter and focus and direct the inspiration in a beam that bedazzles the public and the media, or at least package it in a way that doesn't set off bullshit detectors. Would you rather shout yourself hoarse or use a bullhorn? Build your brand and reputation with the public and the media, because you run better when you don't run alone. Your comms person may not be an electrical engineer, but she's more than likely to be a great social engineer. And the last point here is advertising. Everybody wants to advertise. That's how you put your brand out there, but all you're doing is renting attention. PR buys mind share. PR, I keep saying PR buys mind share and it buys loyalty. Marketing too, by the way, it's just a short-term lease that you're signing. The best, the brightest, the smartest. Who says we offer the best products and services? That's as an ad. Trust me, they offer the best products and services, what your PR guy says, but he or she is saying it to the public, they're saying it to the media. It's not shouty, it's not glitzy, it's not in your face like advertising, because advertising, as soon as it's off, it's gone, you tune out. To wrap up, Elon Musk got rid of his comm teams at Tesla at headquarters. You could argue that is his own best PR, his own worst PR is probably also a good argument to make. Regardless, you could go all scorched earth like he did. As long as your share price is up, your sales are pointing north, and your products are performing, and advertising is doing well as advertised, you'll be fine. But back to the original point, he is one autonomous car crash away from a public catastrophe, one that could melt his share price, sales, and reputation. Point is, great PR people will find a way to get your information out to the public, to build loyalty for your brand. They'll help you pivot before you make a mistake. And if you do make a mistake, they'll help you navigate through it to a win. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Adam. Amazing mentor that every cohort, he shares his wisdom with the startups, with our companies, and he helps them understand that and start to implement what could be potentially their PR plan. Maybe we should start renaming it as the media engineers, as the public relation engineers, so we get a bit more interest by the tech founders to understand how strategic and how valuable these can be. We used to call some of our mentors that come and share about team management and motivation, etc. The people hackers, and that drove a little bit more attention for everybody. But thank you for the sharing. Very practical, very inspirational. We're so happy to have you today here with us sharing. As we go to our next speaker, Shamik, connecting. We thought actually connecting from Asia, but we know he's connecting from the Bay Area right now. Very early. Shamik, if you can share your screen, perfect. We can right now see that you're sharing. You can maximize the slides, so we can see them all in full screen. We can see your video too.
Just 1 second.
Yep, all yours. I'll let you know when we can see the full screen. Yep, It's your stage, please, Shamik. Thank you for coming today.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I like to keep it, very simple and kind of share my story as to where we are and what was I doing. So back in 2015, I was in Mumbai. I was a media professional trying to figure out what my next gig was going to be. And here I met a company, a person who was building apps for celebrities. I figured that that's a very interesting proposition, building apps for celebrities. Of course, the thought process was that you expect celebrities and actors, big actors and actresses, to live in private mansions, right? And not in rented condos. So why would big celebrities and big influencers live in rented spaces on social media? Why don't we build individual platforms for celebrities? And at that time, I knew no celebrity. I didn't even know a single celebrity, let alone in India. But however, we signed up one of the topmost celebrities in India. And then I remember, this is very, very interesting, and that's why I say nothing is impossible, is I had never been to Indonesia, but we had as a plan decided that we will be in the top 4 social markets, which are social media markets, which was India, Indonesia, USA, and Brazil. And I had, while we launched some of the apps in India, some of the celebrity apps in India, we had absolutely no clue how to go about in Indonesia. So used the full power of networking, connected with people. And I landed, I remember in Jan 2017, I landed in Jakarta for the first time. I landed at the airport at 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. I was meeting Agnes Monica and her brother, who were who's the #1 celebrity in Indonesia. And by 7 p.m. I'd signed them. And when I came out of the meeting and I called, my CEO and I said, Agnes Monica, I signed. They're like saying, what, are you like drinking somewhere? I said, no, I mean, that's true. You just signed the Agnes Monica. And that's how it happened. And we went from Indonesia. Once you sign the topmost person, then the rest becomes easy because that sets the trend. And then we went to Brazil, where we signed up the topmost TV star and his supermodel wife. And to the extent that I knew nothing about, didn't know a single word of Portuguese, but every time that I would go to Rio, they would insist that I would come to their home. And one of the challenges that was laid in front of me is, can we set up a meeting with Neymar, which we finally eventually did, Neymar and his team. So yes, nothing is impossible. I'm going to just take you through the 8 mantras that I have for this presentation. So nothing is impossible if you, and of course, this business didn't succeed eventually. We ran out of money, but we did, understand what the issues were. And out of that came the new business that I started, which was on influencer marketing. So that brings me to the second point, which is make mistakes, but don't repeat mistakes. A lot has been said about this by the previous speakers, especially Mikhail and Youre did talk about, how failures can move you forward. So the key is to have a plan, key is to have multiple plans, key is to have plan A, plan B, plan X, Y, Z, and keep maneuvering it as you go along. If you are in check with the ground, if you're in check with ground realities, and if you have the plan, it will eventually move forward. Okay. So the point that I'm making is, yes, make mistakes, but don't repeat them. Again, make new mistakes and move forward. Of course, there is the third point, that is appetite for risk taking. If you are going to be in the business, then you have to have appetite for risk taking. Now, this is something that I want to share with you is when COVID hit in February, we were pretty much seeing what was going to happen with COVID, and we didn't know where we were going to go. So what were the choices? The choices was to cut down on everything and just survive. Or like a very famous personality says, oh, it will just go away. Just leave it to God and think that it will just go away, and then see how things move forward. The third is to look forward and say, okay, we have a problem here. Sometime this problem will end, but where do we want to see ourselves when you come out of this problem? when you are able to solve this problem or you get out of this problem. And so that's how, while we were present in the Southeast Asia market with the influencer marketing company, we realized that we needed to enhance the offering. And during COVID, because it gave us the opportunity, gave us much more time to work on it, we came out of that. And as now, in last month, we actually launched an enhanced product. So COVID actually did good to us in a sense that we got the time, we were able to go back to the drawing board and figure out what we wanted to do and where should we be taking this as we battle this whole issue of COVID, right? One of the other things that I want to talk about is keep learning, how important it is to keep learning. This lockdown actually led to a lot of opportunity of learning because you were working from home and you had more time. So when I was back in 2015, I was the country head for a US-based music streaming company, and it got bought over by Pandora. And that's the time I actually took an year off to learn about tech, because it intrigued me as to what tech was. I was not a tech person. I'm not a techie. I don't know how to do coding, but I wanted to understand what tech was. And I took a year off. I learned how tech has transformed businesses and how it is important to leverage tech in any business. And today, a lot of people think that I'm a techie, but I'm actually not. I'm just a business management professional. But I've understood what tech can do, what is the importance of tech, and how it is critical for any business for any person who's heading the business or who's running the business to realize what tech can do for you. It's extremely important. My next slide is tech talk. It's just continuing from what I was just saying, that I realized what tech enables. What tech enables? Tech enables, one, convenience, efficiency, and information, basically from analytics, right? If there is any solution that you're working on, and if tech can enable these three, leading to convenience, efficiency, and information, things will happen. I mean, tech brings in what? Tech brings in knowledge. Tech brings in transparency, and that brings in trust, right? And this is what is key to a successful business. That if you have knowledge, transparency, and trust if you share knowledge with your partner, with the people you are doing business, if you're transparent and they trust you, the business will be successful. So, for example, today when I write, let's say in any of these developing countries, if you were to earlier land there and if you were to grab a taxi, then you'd always be worried that is the taxi guy going to overcharge? Is he taking me to the right place in the right time? But today with Uber, you know that is not an issue. You know that it's the tech is driving it, and the driver will take you to the from point A to point B as what the app says. So tech brings in convenience, efficiency, and knowledge, and it is extremely important, But that again brings me to another point, which is be smart and deploy smart. Just having tech is not good enough. My dad introduced me to a series of books which were called How and Why, How, When, and Why, and that really stuck to me. Idea is not enough. Tech is not enough. Innovation is not enough. Smart deployment is the key. With the idea, with the tech that you have, where do you deploy it, how do you deploy it, and when you deploy it is extremely important. I learned this from the previous gig that we had, that maybe the timing was a little too early. But yeah, I mean, that's how that, So did we do anything very different from what others are doing? Let's say, for example, in the influencer marketing space, the answer is no. We did the same thing, but we found our niche in Indonesia, where we realized that the market required that kind of technology, and it was one of the top markets in top 4 social media markets, but it didn't have the kind of technology that we wanted in influencer marketing, and that's how we went into one particular country, dig deep there, and then from there move on to other countries, right? So the next one is where I talk about. I'm going to talk about what is influencer marketing. Influencer marketing is nothing but decentralization of media. what has happened is that, you know, the erstwhile fourth estate, which was the print, the television, they were controlled by certain groups. They were controlled by big powerhouses, and the narratives were, you would know that narratives are not always the right narrative, right? It's not probably not the truth that comes out. But with social media coming in, the power went into the hands of the individuals. And today, today you'll see that actually the media houses are commenting on individual tweets and individual posts that are coming out. So the power has gone into, it's got decentralized, it's gone into individual people, and those people are the ones who have the larger following are based on merit. It's not just by magic that somebody becomes an influencer. If they have merit, they become, and they have followers, and then they become influencers, right? So that's you know, what influencer marketing is about. What we've done basically is we've brought in a platform which is you know, which has artificial intelligence, and it basically, what it does is crawled all the data of influencers and brands in a country like Indonesia, and it helps the brands to select which media, which influencer are they going to choose for their campaign. And then they can do live tracking of the campaign. They can actually create the campaign on their own, do live tracking, and get the best ROI out of the campaigns that they're doing. And it's seeing huge success. We've had fantastic response from it. And probably if somebody wants to you know, have a chat with me about this post the session, yes, we can. The last point is be a realist. You know, pessimist, you know, always complains about you know, this is wrong, that is wrong. And so this is more and more important with this whole scenario of COVID that we are seeing. This is going to be the way the next decade is going to be. We are going to see uncertainties. We are going to see a lot of, you know, upheavals, a lot of changes. So as long as you are a realistic, you're realistic, you are a realist, and you keep changing your plan, you keep changing, you know, your maybe not the goals, but you know, how you get to those goals. You will have to be flexible. You'll have to be agile. The business will have to be agile, and you'll have to keep changing for you to succeed and come out of the situation that we are in today. But trust me, as I see it, this is not changing. This situation that we are in is not changing in the next 4 to 5 years. And the effect will last for another 6 to 7 or 8 years, maybe. So this decade is going to be a challenge.
Thank you very much, Shamik, for sharing. Thank you very much for connecting so early and for being part of our community. Actually, Shamik, the story of the company was one for portfolio companies, and sometimes there's different ways where we get to connect with mentors, and there's some people that are part of like leadership positions in our own portfolio companies, that as they grow, they bring a lot of value, they learn a lot of value, and we can leverage their experience to be able to help, because at the end of the day, it's all about experience. And now, talking about our own portfolio and sharing experience, our next speaker is going to be actually the founder of one of our companies. Unfortunately, she just let us know a few hours ago that there was some emergency that could not allow her to join us in person. But she sent us a video with the presentation that she had already ready. So guys, welcome Ruban, co-founder of ELSA. Yep, we are gonna be sharing and playing the video, and make sure that the video is working well, and you can all hear the audio. So for those of you that might not be familiar with ELSA, ELSA is a company that helps people with reducing their accent. But one of the things that make them very interesting as a company is that well, we're talking about a company with a heavy technology in what they do. The founder is not a technical person, and they were able to acquire investment from Google Radio, Google's AI fund, becoming the first company in Asia to receive investment from them. Well, now the tech problems are solved. So here you have Vuban, co-founder and CEO of Elsa.
Everybody, thank you so much for having me here today. It's such an honor to join the 8x8 speaker series organized by SOSV and China Accelerator. My name is Vu Van. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Elsa. And today I would love to share with you guys about 8 different lessons because it's 8x8, so I figure we should share 8 different lessons that I learned myself as a co-founder while building an AI company without a technical background. And I hope that my experience would be relevant for those who are sitting in the audience that might be thinking about starting your own company, especially in the AI space, without being a technical person. So very quickly, for those who don't know about us, we are ELSA, which is standing for English Language Speaking Assistant, and we are a startup here based in Silicon Valley with the mission of helping language learners around the world improve the English speaking skill so that we can give them better opportunities in their lives through our proprietary voice recognition technology and AI. And we had been around for about 4.5 years or so. In that journey, we had built the company with a global team from around the world. And the first lesson I learned when I started the company about 4.5 years ago was that, you know, you're not a technical person. So I myself did not build a solution first and then go start this company. I started with a problem itself. I did not start with a technical solution. And the problem was that I want to solve this big speaking challenges for a lot of language learners around the world, including myself, who has spent years and years of learning English and a lot of money. And yet it might be the case that we could be reading really well, we could be writing really well, but when it comes to speaking, people had a really hard time understanding you. And that really hurt your confidence, that really hindered your potential ability to achieve different opportunities in their lives. And that was the problem that I started with. I did not know what solution that we need to offer, but I knew that that was a problem big enough that somebody should be addressing that. And I would love to be a part of that, finding that solution. And so starting with a problem give you a lot of avenues for thinking about different solutions. And so you don't get too bogged down into one technical solutions and go find a problem to solve, right? So I think that's a different way of looking into it. And being a non-technical person definitely force you to go down that path, which I think is a very good way to start building your company. I think the second lesson that I learned is now you could be starting with a company, you think about the problem that you want to solve and you ended up needing this technical solution. You could be spending the next 6 months trying to look for that technical co-founder, but in that process, start with what you have and don't wait for that technical co-founder to show up. You will need that person, but it doesn't mean that you could not start with that. Because again, starting a company is not just about building a product right at the beginning. It's about researching, understanding what you know and what you don't know about the market. What is the right solution that people need, and how are you going to address that challenges for the market? So what we did at the beginning was I did spend a lot of time just doing market research, trying to even launch a marketing campaign that telling people that, hey, if there is a solution that can help you with speaking English using technology, would you be interested? I launched a waiting list that within the first week or so, we had like 30,000 people signing up on the waiting list. We did not even have a concept of the product. We did not even have a technical solution. And I definitely did not have a technical co-founder. So I think that's the second thing. Just start with what you have and don't wait. Then third, because you don't know a lot of things, especially you don't have a technical background, you cannot build a product. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to ask for help. And in fact, a lot of help, right? Like I went left and right to everybody around me and say, hey, I want to build this AI. I have no clue what it is. Can you tell me? And so every day, my mission back then was just to meet 5 different AI experts in voice recognition technology so that they can either point me to the right direction or connect me to the right people, or just telling me whether that's possible or it's not possible so that I can start learning and educating myself about that. And it's okay. People are willing to help out there, and you can just go out there and get a lot of people to show you what you know, what you don't, and then learn in that process. Which then leading to my next lessons that I learned is that, yes, it's okay to ask for help, but you also own up to what you don't know and have to be really ready to learn fast. Yes, you can go out and say, I don't know a lot about this AI and voice recognition technology, but very quickly, everybody expect you to be an expert in that, enough for you to understand inside out about what this technology can and cannot do, and how is that serving your business, and how is that serving to solve your problem. So I still remember the very early, I even asked a very silly questions to my technical advisor and say, so what exactly is voice recognition technology, even though I was trying to build it? And he sent me a research paper, super, super technical, but I had to really learn it fast so that next time when I asked him the question, it has to be more educated questions and not like those basic and fundamental anymore. And then next one, now you don't have that technical background, but you could use your non-technical advantages and remember what that is. And in my case, networking. Again, in my first 6 months, I did not have a CTO, and it did take me about 6 months to find my CTO. What did I do in that case? I used my network, right? All of the friends and people that I had known over the years, and say, hey, I'm looking for this person. Can you help me point me to the right person? And so, as I said, every day, 5 people that I would go meet and say, hey, who else do you know in this space? Either trying to convince that person to leave their job and join me, or to tell them to connect me to the right person. At the end of the day, I did find my co-founder and CTO at a conference in Germany after almost 6 months of looking. And again, here, using my advantage at a technical conference where majority of the technical people there would just network among their own little group because they're very attached to each other. But me being a non-technical person, the first time at that conference, I was not afraid. I would just went and talk to almost everybody at the conference, and it working really well because at the end of that 5-day conference, the word got out that, hey, have you seen this little Asian girl? She's walking around. She's asking for whoever want to join her as a technical co-founder. So it worked. It just basically helping me spread the message that I'm looking for a co-founder. And I did eventually, after 6 months of looking, I found my co-founder and CTO at that conference. And he's been with me in this journey since the beginning until now. So know what is that is your advantage, and use that and leverage that so to help you address all of the challenges that you have. Then the next thing is, yes, you might not have a lot of the background, especially building the product yet, but action speaks a lot louder than words. It's true in all scenarios, but it's particularly true in this case. You should show what you can do. And for me, again, I did not wait to start until I get my co-founder. When I met my co-founder at the conference in Germany, I actually already had a prototype, even though I don't know anything about voice recognition technology. I already showed him that here's what I had done in the last 6 months. And he was actually really impressed. He's like, wow, how do you even build this? You don't even know about this one. And so showing him that give him a lot of credibility that I'm taking this very seriously and I can move mountains to make anything work. It breaks down a lot of the fear, right, of a person joining a random person, especially joining a startup world. So if you can show people what you can do, I think that goes a long way in compensating for all what else that you don't know and what you might be needing help for. And then the next thing, what I learned is, again, know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And if technical is not your background, then you should surround yourself with the best, like that has to be the best technical expert in your field, right? There are a lot of them out there. Not everybody will join you as a full-time co-founder, but a lot of people are willing to help. Why? Because they're working on amazing technology that has potential impact in the world. They might be busy doing research, but it doesn't mean that they don't care about that impact. So you work with them and you help them bring out the impact of all of their amazing research to reality. And so people are there to help you. You just have to figure out who are those people and surround yourself with that so that every single time, and trust me, you're going to run into challenges every single day of your journey, you know who to knock on their door and say, hey, I need help, and people are going to be willing to help you. So make sure that you complement all of the weaknesses in the areas that you don't know by the best expert in the field. In my case, it has to be the best technical expert in voice recognition technology as well. And last but not least, I think this is one insight that I did not have when I started out. Being non-technical actually make you fearless. And you are not constrained by what you can and cannot do at all. Why is that? Because when you're not technical, you don't know what technology limitations are. So in my case, I just came up with this crazy idea that, hey, I'm going to use AI and voice recognition technology to listen to people speak English, figure out what they do right and wrong, and giving them mistakes. Now, that concept has been there in research, but people have not really brought it out to application because people said there's not enough data, or there's no way we can do it accurately. I did not know any of that limitations. And so for me, it's simple. If Siri can listen to people speaking English well, why can we not turn Siri into something that can teach people English? And so, and that has been that fearless ignorance is a bliss kind of thing. Give me a lot of room just to come up with ideas that is solving people's problems, whether technology can or cannot do it. And then later on, I'll figure out, okay, what are the limitations of technology and how I can solve it. But that fearless attitude get you a long way, especially in the startup journey. And I think that's probably, for me, that's probably the greatest blessing to be a non-technical founder, because again, you can leverage a lot of people's help. You can focus on what you're really good at, and you can just really be ignorant about all of the limitations that give you the ability to just to think that the sky is the limit and you can do whatever you want to do. And I do think that the world needs both. And if you're a non-technical co-founder, then find yourself the best technical co-founder and work with that person to build whatever you want to build as you think about a big problem to solve for the world. So I think that's all I have for today. And thank you so much for giving me the chance to share all of what I have learned in my last few years as I started my company, and would love to learn from everybody else as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing. Thank you very much for although sometimes things that we're not expecting happen, we can always find a solution, and we're able to make things work. You know, like you have a typo in a slide and you real time you change it. But especially very, very interesting last message. Something that sometimes does happen with some of our founders. They try because they don't know how difficult things are, and thanks to that, well, we have a non-technical founder leading one of the top AI language education companies in the world. And now we're ready for our next speaker. I'm also connecting from the Ballet, although in the past resident in Shanghai. Lily, if you can share your screen.
Okay, let me do that.
Yeah, we can see your screen right now. So if you wanna like maximize.
Yep. All right. Here we go. Does that look good?
All yours. Thank you very much for being ready so early in the morning.
Yes. All right. I'm gonna all right. I think you can also see me on video. Is that right?
Yeah, we can also see you on video, but
Oh, okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, let's see. It's a little bit early my time. It's one of those in between hours at 4 a.m. I'm here in the Bay Area. But thank you for having me. I met Oscar in Shanghai a number of years ago, and I think it's amazing that we stayed in touch just a little bit. And so thank you for thinking of me and having me. Oscar asked me to speak about sort of what it means to be a CFO at a startup. He asked me to speak about how I went from being sort of a CFO to entrepreneur. So just wanted to share a little bit about how I came to be where I am today. A lot of it was not necessarily intentional, but just a little bit about sort of how I got started. I'm from here in the Bay Area. I started, if you go to the left, I'm Chinese American. I was born and raised here in Piedmont, California, which is where I live now. I have I put a little icon of like a violin on there because I was like a very sort of typically Chinese American kid. I played the violin. I swam, no balls to injure my head. Right. I studied really hard from a young age. I was going to be a doctor, right? Hence, like the little pre-med sign over there. I was a pre-med in college. I went to Stanford. And so I kind of, did everything the way I was supposed to do things. Was maybe 2 classes away from actually applying to med school, but I kind of had interests more in political science and econ, and really came around to thinking, well, I'm not really sure that I want to be in med school for or in some form really for the next 10 years to be studying, and then it's like a very prescribed track. Instead, so what I did next is I was like, well, I'll do a master's in East Asian studies. I had a longstanding interest in Chinese politics, Chinese reform, and fundamentally how did 20% of the population go from being sort of in the throes of many things to being very fairly prosperous today, right? I kind of landed a little bit randomly into the business world. So I, almost by accident got an internship with Morgan Stanley in Hong Kong, all the way to the right. Ended up joining McKinsey in New York, worked in private equity at KKR, and had also, traveled around the world, worked in, quite a number of places, worked or studied in quite a number of places. So I was, been very fortunate. And was also sort of, also fairly conscious about being associated with, institutions, right? Because that's kind of the way you're supposed to do it. And I will say that they were, very good places sort of be trained professionally. And then, so I did that from when I graduated and up until 2011. And then, I joke that kind of all fell apart a little bit, right? So I took this crazy job in 2011 where I built a hospital in China, about 3 hours away from Shanghai. That's how I originally got to know Oscar. And we, had basically a plot of dirt and we built this 500-bed hospital, which is still operating today. And that was really like my first startup, if you will, although not necessarily what you think of when you think about a startup, is where you think about software and apps and technology and so on and so forth. But this is really my first startup, and they asked me to be the CFO. I didn't really, honestly, I didn't really know what that meant, but I feel like at the time I was like, okay, well, I can probably go figure it out. I talk about that experience at length, but it was a very, very challenging experience, and also a very character forming experience. And then the second startup I did, I was also the CFO. I took over this company called 21 Inc., which was heavily funded, had like a lot of press about it, but was actually a very, very distressed company. Because they basically raised too much money, had a huge amount of kind of debt burden, had a lot of press to kind of live up to. And so we took over a company with negative 50 million on its balance sheet in terms of all its liabilities, with no working product, no functioning team. And we had to both get out of all of that. And we ended up starting an entirely new company in that, which Earn, and then ended up selling that to Coinbase. So kind of joke that, these two sort of experiences, a lot of the time I was like, well, I don't really know anything about building a hospital, right? I don't really know anything about Bitcoin mining hardware. And then starting a company where you're basically selling, pay per email response. Well, I don't think anyone really knows anything about that per se. And so, what does being a CFO have to do with any of this, right? And then now I've started a couple of other a nonprofit and a for-profit related to pandemic stuff. But anyways, so for me, I've never actually considered myself as being a CFO. I kind of fell into that position because here were some of the things that I considered be my core skill sets. and then in the situations I was in, the way that was the most useful was, I suppose, taking on the role of being a CFO, right? And so what are those things? Thinking pragmatically, right? Thinking in a structured way, being able to solve business problems that are sitting in front of you, doing that in an analytical way. For me, I've always seen a lot of stuff happening in the business world, and really, particularly in the startup world, is really just being applied common sense. In my view, sort of, a startup is ultimately a business. And a lot of the business principles that you learn, for large companies is actually very similar to what gets applied with small companies. Part of the big difference being in a large company, obviously things are very established. There's an existing business model. In a small company, you're looking for product market fit. But a lot of the things that sort of drive product market fit and whether you're going to be successful, to me, are it actually can't be that complicated. Otherwise, it will never scale, right? And then, the other big difference between working in the very large institutions, which I've done plenty of, and being in a startup situation is that you're just willing to do what it takes, because startups, they all look like this when you start, right? And so, if there's an expectation for existing structure, then there isn't a whole lot to stand on. So you kind of sort of got to do the bootstrapping yourself, of course, right? So as I kind of went into these situations, the way I ended up being the CFO was, I always approached the situations and companies I was working in as sort of how could I be the most useful, right? And so, thinking pragmatically, thinking in a structured way, being analytical, looking at problems. For a CFO, I think, one of the conceptions people have is that you're just managing money, right? You're doing spreadsheets, crunching numbers, and, there's like the stereotype, there's kind of like the green eye shade accountant sitting behind a desk and like, doing your numbers, right? So I think that perception can exist and comes from the role that a CFO can typically play in a larger setting. But I really thought about it as, in a company, yes, you are to an extent managing money. But if your role is to sort of take a longer perspective, think strategically about resource allocation, because startups are so risky, it's not so much about managing money, because a lot of times you don't have very much of it. It's really more about managing risk, right? In managing risk in terms of, how you spend your more important resource, which is actually really time oftentimes than money, because those two are so interrelated, and helping your team kind of figure out, all right, what bets do we want to take in terms of product, the products that we want to build, the features that we want to build, where we do want to deploy our limited capital, what sort of team members are going to be making the biggest difference, right? And inherent in a lot of that is thinking about business strategy, product market fit, and so that's for me one of the big differences between being a CFO in a very structured setting, right? Which is more about managing money, right? And in a startup setting, it's really taking a more holistic approach to managing risk, and principally not just around how you spend your money, but also how you spend your time. So as a CFO of a startup, that might have been my title, but like many other people in early stage business, a big part of the value and my job is how can I grow the business, right? So thinking about that in a structured way, right? Taking an analytical approach to that. What do I mean by that? Being a CFO is an inherently quantitative role, right? You're expected to, have a quantitative approach to resource expenditure, and oftentimes take a look at not just sort of the dollar and cents that are coming and going and, being paid and received and those types of things, but also sort of taking an operational view on that, right? Looking at the operational sort of metrics of the business, and providing that view in a fairly objective way, right? Because then and tell those facts and tell that story in a way that sort of everyone can buy into. And I was also reminded of what Peter Thiel oftentimes would write about, which is what makes a lot of founders sort of very insightful in their markets is that you can see those secrets that are hiding in plain sight, right? And so, the role of being a sort of, the CFO, at least in my view, has been not just about the dollars and cents, but also, helping reveal those types of secrets through data, through analysis. And it's not, and that applies to the market that you're in and sort of, and bringing that, perspective to bear. Because ultimately what that does is it has a big influence on how you allocate resources, right? And so from my view, all of the work that I did earlier in my 20s when I was working at sort of larger companies, for a while it didn't sort of become clear to me how that was actually that useful. I think, as the years have gone on, I've become much more appreciative of sort of how I got started in a lot of those things. Because at the end of the day, startups, they are businesses as well. They're actually much harder businesses to run because oftentimes you're not even really sure what the business is quite yet, right? So you have to keep on thinking, keep on innovating, not just on your product, but sort of the business model at the same time because you're trying to find that fit there. And so, as you go about that process, sort of being able to to understand business drivers, right? To understand operationally sort of what makes you stronger or weaker, being fairly detail oriented and analytical. And that just really sort of cuts down the cycle time on being able to test and sort of get feedback on what you are doing, right? And so, that approach it also has made me think, particularly over the last couple of years that, oftentimes in my view, there's these conceptions about, oh, this is a technical founder, this is a business founder, and there's a little bit of segregation of roles. In my view, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case, right? At the end of the day, there are just certain consistencies about what makes companies after you get product market fit. But then after that, there's quite a number of just things that are true of all well-run businesses, right? And having sort of the views and on a business that at least I got to have as being the CFO, I felt like have been very useful, and also really a foundation of all of the future startups that I would be doing in the future. So yeah, so those are some of my thoughts. And you can get my contact information, find me on social media, but thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Lily, for sharing, and awesome to have you today late and share this extremely important thought that we always share with all the founders. That there's a component of working on your idea, working on your product, working on your market and your users. But this holistic view of the company, very numbers driven, is also important to make sure you build the foundation. And thank you very much also for being such a great inspiration for all the founders that they have to get to learn these opportunities. And now, last but not least, our last speaker of the night, also connecting from the US West Coast, in this case LA. Please welcome Per Wellinger. Per, if you can share your screen so we can see your slides.
Yes.
We can see your Zoom now.
Very good. We're gonna get to the right spot in a second here.
Awesome. So waiting for the present to see full screen. Perfect. We can see the full screen. Your stage, Per. All yours.
Okay, great. Great. Thanks for having me. We're going to go back in time to the 90s. I've had a 10-year professional skateboard career at a time and had this urge to start my own company. And of course, I figured it makes sense to start a skateboard company because I knew a little thing about that. But I also knew that to be successful, I really wanted to make sure I partnered with someone that was very high profile. And at the time, I approached Tony Hawk, and we started Birdhouse Skateboards. And of course, as a skateboard company, you make skateboards. But to build demand, we figured, let's do something really new and interesting. What you see here on the screen are two scenes from one of our skateboard films. So to the left, you'll say, what does fire have to do with skateboarding? Well, probably not a whole lot, but it certainly creates a moment that you're going to remember if you saw the film. And to the right, you'll see Tony Hawk himself, at the time, the first skater to do the full loop on a ramp, which is pretty remarkable at the time. So we learned that making cool videos and films like this really helped us build demand. But the most important part was we got some good help. Well, first of all, back then, print advertising was still very prominent to build a brand. But very early on in the 90s, some of you may remember, the electronics companies decided to come out with a new technology. They were called VCRs. So with that, and then later DVD players, our content fit exceptionally well for both those innovations. And most importantly, if you see to the very far right, is a picture of a PlayStation. Sony came out with a PlayStation in the late 90s, and we were at the right place at the right time. And Activision came out with Tony Hawk Pro Skater. And that game propelled not just Birdhouse skateboards, certainly Tony Hawk, but skateboarding to just about every corner of the world. And in essence, changed skateboarding from a toy to a lifestyle. So 25 years later, I've learned a lot from building action sports global brands. And the best way to sum it up is we built brands through storytelling, something that connects with your heart, something you're going to remember. And now I have shifted my attention from an operator and entrepreneur into the world of an investor. And of course, being an investor, you're passive, you don't have as much control. So what I had to do, I really figured I would have to create a framework from what I learned to best have a chance of investing wisely. And that framework is actually really simple. It's 3 pillars: the idea, the leadership, and movements. And I'll make a perfect example here in a company we have invested in that we believe check all those boxes. So if we start with the idea itself, the idea came to us and it's a premium electric motorcycle company. So from the outside looking in, oh, that seems to make sense. People are talking about zero emission. But more importantly, from an investor perspective, who is the company, people behind the company? And in this case, this is a picture of Stefan. He had already had a success. He had built and sold a helmet company. So we knew there was something there. But the combination of the leadership and the idea is what really got us excited. He didn't just want to make electric motorcycles. He wanted to be part of a movement to contribute towards a zero emission society. So the purpose-driven idea is what really got us excited. But when you look at a new company, whether it's Cake or someone else that we are looking at investing in, the most difficult part to assess is how hard or how easy is it going to be for this company to create movements. And what I mean by movements is anything from internally making people want to be part of this company, move this idea forward with the product or services or whatever it is, or a combination thereof. But it could also be movements around journalists that want to write about this innovation and this idea or the company in general. And we believe at this point, although they're 2 years in, that they are pulling this off fantastically. To the left, you see a picture of a motorcycle, a guy jumping in the air. It's not that sensational, but if I tell you the backstory, it will be. They built a track downtown, a small town in France called Saint-Tropez, very famous city. And you can imagine being there, no sound other than music, no smell, no pollution. Whether you were a bystander, you saw this, or whether you were one of the first to be part of this invitational first of cakes competition, you will most likely remember that for a very, very long time. And the picture to the right, yes, the motorcycle is in the foreground, but what the picture really tells you, here's a guy, a fishing enthusiast, who probably is able to get up the river a little further, a little easier than he could before. And he certainly can get places where cars are not allowed. Again, he may catch a fish that day, and I bet you he's going to post about how cool it was with his first motorcycle that he could ride out in the nature and not feel bad. And as I also went back earlier in the 90s when we were building our company, you noticed new communication platforms on the bottom here. If you're going to make a company work in North America, Europe, and South America, you need to be on the latest and most powerful platforms to let your message out there. And in this case, it's the suspects would be Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and whatever else is next. We have full confidence in that this group knows how to handle it all. And in a nutshell, this is a perfect example of what we believe is brand building through storytelling. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing. I mean, very, I mean, this is very inspirational in terms of how to build out of your passion a business. And Per has been amazing working with some of our portfolio companies, helping them understand how the story of their companies can be very relevant. How can they build from that into something that can have some legs. And now, as we have more companies from the US and from Asia, expanding across different regions, paired together with his partner based in Asia, they've been also quite helpful, both of them mentors in our companies. So your feedback matters. These are all the speakers. These are the 8 lessons, the 8 ideas from our super mentors. And we really care about what you share. So we're going to have right now an opportunity for all of you to get this fantastic design of our 10-year anniversary together with a set of swag that includes different elements. So please, if you go to this second form where you can give us your opinion, if you like the event, what are your thoughts about what can be improved. We will be sharing with the first 10 participants in the survey from different cities that connect a kit of all of these swag. So we're sending also the link, as in the previous case, in the chat, so you can go there, click the link, let us know your experience with the event, so we can always get better and better. And now, one of the changes that we have for this event compared to the previous one is that we want to have much better opportunities for networking, for all of you to connect with the startups, with the speakers, with the participants, something that we always had in previous events, but that these remote events, they sometimes make it a bit more difficult. So what we're going to have is an opportunity in Gotin to connect with all the other participants. And we're gonna have two options, okay? As you can see on the left, there were very different parts of the event where you have the multiple options for networking. Option one, we are gonna have groups of discussion where the conversation will be moderated by somebody, and there will be all the different people that want to learn more. You have to pick your verticals. These are the 6 verticals that we have. We're going to have a conversation about e-commerce, conversation about insurtech, conversation about AI and data insights, conversation about mobile apps, finally legal tech, and one more open conversation about SaaS and enterprise software. These are the topics that you can join a group of people to have a conversation, to learn more, to connect with more peers that might be relevant. If you want to meet people at an individual level, there's also an option. You can go to the one-to-one networking, where you will have an opportunity to have 3-minute conversations as a starter with different people. You will be connected with a random participant that also wants to meet others. After the 3 minutes are over, you're going to be having an opportunity to continue the conversation or to talk with someone else. As you click that you want to continue chatting, that conversation will last for as long as you guys want. That image will be prompted when you are 30 seconds away from finishing the initial 3 minutes. So remember, 2 options for networking. All of them are going to be accessible in the Gotin platform on your left. Option 1, select one of the group networking options in one of these verticals. And option 2, connect one-on-one with different participants. You'll be assigned every time that you click to network with somebody randomly. And then you'll have 3 minutes for this initial conversation. And after these 3 minutes, you'll be asked, do you want to continue the conversation and keep talking? Or do you want to meet someone else new? So with that, we are going to move everything in the event to the conversation, to this networking in groups or individual. And have a great weekend. And by the way, remember that this event is possible thanks to a lot of people that have been working behind the scenes to make it all possible. So enjoy the networking and see you in the one-on-ones or in the group sessions. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Hello?
Are you joining the e-commerce session?
Can you hear me?
Are you joining the e-commerce session?
I'm here in the e-commerce session. Can you hear me? Sorry, can you hear me?
Isabel, you need to leave the chat of the Zoom and join.
Okay.
Imagine a house way up on a hill, dug in the yard with trees in the fields. It's next to the water, it's the prettiest scene, with white picket fences on maybe surf green. As wonderful as this all seems, this is beyond our means.